Hey everyone. One of the trademarks of living in H-Town is the affordability, but several factors are now making it harder and harder to live here without breaking the bank. So, what can be done? Our economic insider, Professor Chris Clarke, joins me to explain what's happening and if we're really on the verge of becoming an unaffordable city to live in. It's Monday, August 14th, 2023. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, Chris, one of my favorite guests. Welcome back to
Oh my
CityCast Houston.
goodness.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man. All right. Before we start and dig into the affordability issue, as an economist, I have to ask you about data points and what do you get hyped up about, right? Is it the unemployment numbers? Is it the Fed interest rate numbers? Is it something else? I got to know, like, what gets you going?
Well, right now it is definitely the unemployment numbers. We are experiencing historically amazing labor market right now. We have 18 months of below 4% unemployment rate. We haven't seen anything like that since the moon landing.
Mm.
Uh, we had below 4% for about a year in 2019, but now we're going on 18 months of it now. And that's just absolutely fantastic. And people just don't talk about it enough.
So how does that play into affordability? So just me as an outsider, when you say that, that means more people are working, right? More people
Yeah.
are making money, so they have more spending power, and the demand is up on buying certain things. Is that why affordability is being impacted because of that number specifically?
So the cyclical kind of business cycle, recession, not recession of an unemployment rate, that's going to have some effect on the demand for housing. But today, I just don't think that's the biggest driver. For example, in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, so we're going like June or fall of 2020, the price of houses started to explode. And we all wanted to know why, because the unemployment rate was recovering. Businesses were opening up, jobs were coming back. But we saw the explosion in house prices largely due to the demand for people who wanted to work from home. About 40% of the increase in price could be associated with just everybody moving to the suburbs because they need that home office.
Wow. Okay. So now we're starting to see stories when it comes to Houston specifically about it becoming unaffordable to live in, with the suburbs now dealing with homelessness, to monthly payments of cars going up. But when we talk about affordability, what factors actually impact affordability?
So, a price of a house is determined by two big frameworks. You have people who want a house on the demand side, and then you have how many houses there are on the supply side. So on the demand side, it's just kind of two things: how many people are, the population, and the location.
Mm.
People want to live in a certain place, so it's kind of combined. How many people want to live at a particular location? That tells you nearly the whole story. On the supply side, it's just the construction. How many structures exist. A lot of debate about private versus public housing, and those things will matter a little bit, but in the end all that matters is, do we have enough structures where people want to live?
Gotcha. So housing is the biggest factor when it comes to affordability.
Oh, it's the biggest expense everybody has.
Are there any other smaller factors that impact this when we talk about affordability?
Your job, how much income you have, and then the overall inflation level of the average basket of the price of the average basket of goods.
Okay, gotcha. Now, based on your research, is Houston truly becoming a more unaffordable place to live in, or are we just falling for headline traps right now?
No, I don't think so. I think Houston's affordability has become more difficult over the past 3 years, and even you could say over the past decade, kind of following national trends with housing. So specifically zeroing in on housing,
Yeah.
the Harris County has seen rents for multifamily homes, so for apartments or whatnot, they've gone up 13% over the past 3 years. And that's comparable to the national level. It's a measurement of around 17%. And Fort Bend specifically, their rents have gone up 20%. And we're seeing this happening across Texas. San Antonio's at 18%, Dallas is at 21%, and of course, Austin's Travis County is also in that 20% range. Now, the good news for folks on the other side of the state in Austin is in the past 12 months, so not looking just the beginning of the pandemic, but just over the past 12 months, their rents have fallen by 2%. And that's
Mm.
something we're not seeing in Houston yet.
Do you think Houston will just continue climbing a little bit more just because of the population boom? We have seen more people moving here and in Texas in general. So I'm sure that's one of the biggest factors, right? There's just more people here. What do you think happens with Houston when it comes to that rent? Is it going up, going down? What do you think?
So we have a choice as a city and as a county that do we want to build enough houses to keep rents, to keep housing affordability where it needs to be? So if we choose not to, either through zoning or through other sort of like red tape to prevent construction, if we don't build enough, the rents are going to go up. The reason why we're seeing a little bit of success over the past 12 months is because Austin has been building tons and tons of apartments. In Houston, we need to be doing the same thing.
Gotcha.
And we need to build enough to meet the demand of everyone who wants to live here. And that can keep it affordable. And this is one of the reasons why Houston has this reputation for being affordable for generations, is because relative to San Francisco or Manhattan, we build way more than they do. And that is for the size of city we are, that's kept us relatively affordable so far. But it's not guaranteed to happen unless we keep doing it.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? It's like finding that sweet spot of building more, not having too much demand. Like, do you want that? Because then, houses or apartments are just sitting there and that creates another bubble. What is that sweet spot in your opinion?
That's an interesting question. I don't think we're in any sort of uh, fear of a 2008 style boom boom of a bubble. And the biggest reason for that, I think, is vacancy rates are still really low. It takes a lot longer time to find the apartment you want than it did before, and that's what's driving up most of the prices. And the other thing we're kind of seeing is the average credit score of people who are buying houses right now is super, super high. So, and that kind of goes into the affordability. It's only people with really good incomes, really good credit scores are buying houses now. It's less accessible to others.
Yeah, and that was my next question regarding affordability, right? The interest rates right now on a mortgage. I mean, they
Oh
are
yeah. Oh
really,
yeah.
really high. Like it is scary.
It
I'm in the
really is.
market right now.
Oh
We look at houses and it's so
no.
scary. You go, wow, this is it. This is the perfect house. And then you run the numbers and you go, wait, hold on, what is it at right now?
Yeah.
And it's
It's
terrifying.
not.
How does that play into affordability?
It is not. It's not a good time to buy a house. It just isn't. I mean, these things, hopefully, this is just a short run cycle. This is just going to happen for a year or two of having these high interest rates. Because this is all set by the Federal Reserve. They're in DC. They're worried about inflation. And their primary tool they have to fight inflation is to raise the interest rates. And of course, one of the consequences of that is we have less activity happening in the home purchasing market. And there's winners. If you're saving right now, trying to save for retirement, you're benefiting from higher returns. But there's losers, people who are having, trying to buy a house or trying to borrow a car or start a business, and the loans are more expensive to start businesses on. So there's a secondary component too that is going to make buying a house difficult for this next year. At the start of the pandemic, 2020, interest rates plummeted. They were having around five or so. They plummeted down to like 3.5 or even lower for some people. And so everybody refinanced. They like, okay, we're going to lock in these super low rates. And so you have tons of mortgages today that are sitting at 3.2%. And these people don't want to move because if they move, they're going to have to pay 7%. And that's just extra money that's going for interest. That's not buying you a better house. It's not buying you a better neighborhood. And so they're not doing it. The supply of homes being put on the market, just kind of in your regular turnover, is way small. And I
Yeah,
think everyone's just kind of waiting for those interest rates to fall. And
absolutely.
kind of the prognostics is they'll fall maybe in 2024, but certainly by 25, inflation will be totally back to normal and the rates will hopefully come back down.
Now, I know this one might be really hard to answer because everybody has different standards of living and people define living as differently, right? But
Yeah.
how much do you think Houstonians need to make to survive here in Houston now?
Right. So I mean, yeah, there's so many different ways of measuring that. One, we have a poverty rate, right? But
Yeah.
even if you're just above whatever our, the official poverty rate is around 25,000 a year, depending on how many people are in your family. That's not, you're not thriving. That just means you're above a poverty rate. It's a
Yeah.
spectrum. Like there's not a line. Okay, now I've made $1 more than that. Now I'm well off. No, people are struggling all the way through. Even if you get to median household income, you can have a difficult time. What we're seeing in terms of there's this estimate out there that's called the level to be thriving at. That's a particular number they use, which as a technical economist, I always love when you could say things, this is the thriving rate. You know,
Yeah.
it's a little less dry than a lot of the words we use to describe the economy. And that for a single person, that's hovering at around 67 kind of $70,000 a year.
Gotcha.
So that's thriving. That means you've got enough to go on vacation. That means you got enough to pay for healthcare. It means you have a house, probably in a decent neighborhood. You have to budget. You still have to say no to a lot of the things you want. But you 70,000 for a single person. That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. For me, when I think about that number, like what's a good thriving number, I
Yeah.
feel like one factor you should encounter is like, are you listening to multiple podcast episodes a week? Because then you're kind of thriving, right? Like you got the freedom. I think that's a good measurement as well. It's not official. It's not, there's no data to back this up. But if you can rip through, multiple episodes, then you got a little financial freedom here.
I love that. That's totally true because then you have the mental space for it.
Yeah.
Enough of your life is taken care of. You're not worried about it.
Hmm.
That you can do some serious podcast recreation. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Livable minimum wage. I want to ask about this one because this does play into affordability and what people are making around the city of Houston. But how is that calculated, first of all?
Oh, that's very interesting. That a lot of people look at this as if you are a full-time working adult, how much do you need to pay for the bare minimum? So this is not thriving. This is
Okay.
like a studio apartment, enough transportation to get there. You don't even need a car per se. If there's a couple places in Houston you can do that. If you live along the track, the light rail or something. Um, so that's usually how it's calculated. Bare minimum amount of
Mm,
calories, bare minimum amount of healthcare. It's basically as low as you can go while still having clothes, food, and shelter. It's the bare minimum. And yeah, 7.25, the national minimum wage doesn't do that. It's
no,
not
it
even
doesn't do
close.
that. And
No,
and of
no,
course that won't cut it here in the city of Houston right now with everything
no.
we've just talked about as well.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. The pandemic, you brought up housing, but it also did some wonky things to the car market. And now, with
yeah. It
interest
did.
rates
Yeah.
being so high, buyers are facing on average payments of $1,000 a month in Texas. Will this ever change, or is this also the new normal with the crazy interest rates and just the wonky market that we can never predict?
Yeah, so I've got like a bunch of thoughts on this. First, I'll start off with the good news
Okay.
because I looked up that $1,000 numbers because I was like, "Whoa, that's a huge number." Um, that and I saw that the Houston Chronicle reported on that 2 days ago. Uh, that measure is it says 25% of new car purchases are paying a payment of $1,000 or more. So luckily, it's not the average. It's just the top 25. So
Okay.
these are most likely well off people. Um, but it is high. That is a higher number. In fact, they said that Wyoming was the only state that had more than 25% of the population paying $1,000 a month in new cars. And what can we guess is the similarity between Wyoming and Texas in terms of the type of vehicle they would buy? Someone who is well off.
I'm gonna say a high, I would say like a luxury vehicle? I don't know.
Wide open spaces.
Oh, trucks.
There you are.
Big
Yes, yes.
trucks.
So, and those are expensive. So I think
Okay.
that's drive. That's probably the biggest factor is a lot of the people. Again, this is the top 25% of the car purchasing market are paying over 1,000. That's because they're buying nice, expensive trucks.
Gotcha.
Um, Now, if we looked at the average was close to around $770 a month, which
Woo!
is that's
That's
still a big
high.
number.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. So that now you're at around 50%. That's super high. So what's driving that? Obviously, the interest rates are doing that. We had all that chip shortage that happened kind of 2020 into 2021. So we had 2 full years of that. That has largely recovered, but there is concern that a lot of the car manufacturers are not going to increase their production to the levels that they used to be. My final thought is we are seeing good signs in other places. Again, the CPI numbers that just came out today, the inflation numbers today, showed that used cars are falling dramatically. They're 5% cheaper this month than they were last month, for
Good.
example. So, but they came from such a high place. We've got a long ways to go before they kind of normalize. So, uh, tough time to buy a car as well. Yeah.
I know you don't like making big predictions, but if you had to make a quick prediction for our listeners, do
Yeah.
we ever get back to that awesome feeling of Houston being this great, affordable city with so many awesome restaurants and so many
Yeah.
great people, right? But that affordability was always a big driving factor. Does that eventually come down?
I'm optimistic. I think it's something our city takes a lot of pride in, and I think, well, I have a hope that the city leadership sees this. We are seeing rents rise at a rate we've never seen our city experience it before, and we have a real strong culture of building. That's the NIMBY movement, is sometimes it's called the Not in My Backyard movement, which is very much entrenched in California and in New York. That's why it's just so expensive there. That culture is not as strong here, and so I have a hope we'll be able to build enough houses to keep Houston affordable.
I love it. Hey, and maybe the Beyonce concert coming up will be a big economic boom and a shot in the arm that could help a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
saw your one on Taylor Swift, and that was awesome. So hey, maybe Queen Bee could do it. Hey, we never know, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Chris, thank you so much. That was very insightful, and I'm feeling more optimistic here. So thank you.
Yeah, wow. It's always great to talk about the economy because these things affect us, and we can make the wrong choice or we can make the right choice. And I think we can. I think we can do the right thing.
That was Chris Clarke. You can follow all of his work with the links in our show notes. Before we go, animal lovers, mark your calendars because the Houston SPCA is hosting their popular Clear the Shelters event on August 26th. If you've been waiting to adopt, then you have to check out this event because you'll get a ton of added on bonuses like free spay or neuter surgery, up-to-date vaccinations, a microchip, free food, and you'll even get a post-exam from any VCA animal hospitals. You can learn more at houstonspca.org. And by the way, it's not just cats and dogs. Almost every animal is part of this awesome event. So August 26th, go clear the shelters. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. All right, you ready, Chris?
I'm ready.